Green Recovery Challenge Fund is government money through DEFRA, but it's actually being administered by the National Lottery Heritage Fund, and they've granted us about £1.7 million worth of money over about 18 months to get a whole load of projects off the ground and delivered. It's quite a short time scale, but it's given us a real good boost to some of the activity that we were involved in anyway as the Mersey Forest.
As part of the Making Space for Nature project, we've looked to introduce 5 environmental improvements in 5 different parks or sites across the city. The first project here at Crown Street is the planting behind me. So these climbing plants have been put in to cover graffiti, which was deemed to be a little bit of an eyesore and detract from the other attractions of the park. And there's a number of different planting species behind us, including things like honeysuckle and ivy, and these will provide flowers and pollination, nectar for attracting insects, as well as habitat and shelter for animals over the winter. This is the pollinator works at Crown Street Park. You can see that we've cut some areas out into the longer grass, and these have been seeded with a wildflower seed. It's a little bit early yet, but in a couple of weeks we should see some really bright colours here. That would be great for both attracting insects and pollinators, and it'll also be really lovely for the people that are using the park for leisure or just using it as a cut-through. We're in the walled garden here at Greenbank Park, where we've put in 2 pollinating structures, timber-based and the range of pollinating plants and climbers. The idea is that these climbers will grow over this year and subsequent years, and by next year we hope that they will have maybe covered completely. The idea of the pollinating plants is that they will attract pollinating insects and all sorts of other animals, including birds, and on top of that they'll provide some lovely shady, cool tunnels for people to enjoy during really hot days like today. So we're still in Greenbank Park, and behind me are 3 floating ecosystem islands that were put in as part of the Making Space for Nature project as well. These islands have been introduced to the park lake to do a job for us, and the job they're doing is twofold. On one hand, they're introducing new planting and biodiversity and pollination for insects, and on the other hand, the island's also improving the water quality. And the way they're doing this is that the reeds that you can see planted on the islands behind me, they grow down through the base of the island, and the reeds hang in the water underneath the water surface, and they suck up all the extra nutrients that are in the park lake, and in doing that they clean the water, and hopefully they'll help avoid potential algal blooms. So this is Northway Recreation Ground, and before we put in this sustainable urban drainage system there was just a patch of boggy ground, and nobody ever really came to this part of the park. So what we've done here is we've introduced what's called a sustainable urban drainage system. So we've put a liner underneath here, we've put some edging planting around the edge of the small waterway, and we've kept some of the bushes and scrub that was here before to provide habitat for the plants and animals that live here. We've also put in these stepping stones in the central island, and that's attracted quite a lot of interest from the school. And we're very fortunate that there is a school adjacent to this, so this makes a really lovely educational area for them as well. So we're hoping that next year, once the planting's established, we might even get to see some frogs as well.
We're a charity that help kind of commission a lot of the health outcomes from a natural health point of view, so a natural health service point of view. So that's our brand, it's the Natural Health Service. That kind of covers a lot of different evidence-based projects for people to kind of find something in their local area to help them become healthier. It could be any form of support for their health, could be for their mental well-being, could be for their physical activity levels, or if they're feeling socially isolated, then it's a kind of free service that you can access, if you like, to kind of increase those health outcomes. And one of the ones that we run here today over in Liverpool is delivered by a company called Faith for Change. They're one of our partners, so my role is I help commission Faith for Change. I use the funding of the Green Recovery Fund to spend money on one of our evidence-based products, and that is the Gardening for All project that you can see here. And that's only one of the strands of the Natural Health Service under the Green Recovery Fund, but it's been really successful. And my role is just to make sure that Crystal, who delivers the sessions here, is really well supported and everything's going well on a week-to-week basis, and just to try and capture all those health outcomes for the members of the public to use the space and kind of get involved in some really fun tasks basically to help them with their health as well.
I am a creative project worker, so I hold various workshops within the community, growing food for Micro Food Bank, and we try to involve the community as much as possible, especially in this area. The activities consist of 12 weeks, and I really gauge with the participants to see what kind of skills they have and what kind of skills that they can possibly develop as well. But just general skills like seed sowing, garden maintenance, growing their own food, and also sometimes cooking as well. But it's fantastic for them because it means they get to meet new people, they get to be outside, get a little bit of exercise. It's fantastic for their mental health, and I think that's one of the main reasons why we do what we do.
My job is to try and reduce flood risk by using natural processes to slow flood water with the aim of reducing flood peaks downstream. As part of the Green Recovery Fund project, we're looking at 3 sites that feed into a sort of flooding problem within the Sankey Valley. So we've worked on Collier's Moss and Griffin Wood, which are 2 sites owned by the Community Forest Land Trust, and we're working at the moment at Fir Tree Farm, which is in the sort of north of the catchment near Billinge. The focus of all of those sites has been putting interventions onto sort of surface runoff pathways, which is where when you get heavy rain and water runs across the surface, you suddenly get a watercourse that wasn't there before. And in those cases, we're putting structures across those pathways to slow the flow of water, try to attenuate it, so temporarily store it, and then gradually release it so that we're flattening the sort of the peak flood hydrograph. To do that, we've been using a combination of leaky woody dams. Here at Griffin Wood, we've got this lovely new stream that we've created that was previously a culverted watercourse, so the watercourse was running underground. What we've done is we've unearthed that, brought it to the surface, and we've wiggled it through this woodland behind me so that we are slowing that flow. We're creating a lot more capacity within the channel, so if when we do get flood flows, it can spill out onto the floodplain, and we're getting a whole load of co-benefits as well for wildlife. So this is one of the water level loggers that we're using to monitor how these interventions are working. What we do is we put one of these in at the top of the line of interventions and one at the bottom, so we can see how the water that's coming in is being reduced by the interventions with the outflow. With the effects of climate change, we're only likely to see sort of more frequent and higher intensity rainfall events, more flooding. So the more of this kind of thing that we can get in, the better. We need to take that catchment scale approach. This individual site is not going to solve the flooding problems of the Sankey Valley, but if we can pepper these around the whole catchment, hopefully we can have a combined effect that's going to be really positive.
I work for Mersey Forest, funded by Green Recovery. My job is to manage 2 areas at the moment, Bill Forest Park, which is here, and Griffin Wood, this being Collier's Moss North. A lot of the stuff I've been doing early on was getting to know the public, dealing with antisocial behaviour and that sort of thing, which has been really good. And of course Green Task Force have played a great role in that because they're such good communicators. In terms of work, we've had a sort of collaborative group with TCV, Conservation Volunteers, Groundwork Trust with some volunteers, and of course Green Task Force. And the idea was to bring them all together. I could have used contractors and we could have done a lot more work, but the social aspect of what we do in Mersey Forest is far more important. So we brought in groups that would get people involved. And we've had the smaller groups doing the light touch with volunteers, and then the Green Task Force coming in and doing some of the heavy lifting.
The Green Task Force is a veteran intrinsic organisation, and we were set up over here in the northwest to provide the Mersey Forest with a planting team, tree planting team, and a light workforce in order for them to achieve their tree planting goals. We pride ourselves on having multiple units, cap badges, various lengths of service. We've got individuals that have served 30 plus years in uniform to individuals that have only served 4 years, so it makes no difference. And what have you, we've all given our time, and to be back together is just wholesome. They feel safe, and it's the humour and the sense of belonging that grips them first. The work that we do, particularly in this area, we've managed to achieve some great skills through Mersey Forest and the Green Recovery Challenge Fund, which has not only allowed to sort of enable myself and a coordinator to set up the project, but it's also allowed me to train the veterans, which helped as a recruitment aid, but also give the veterans a good background and solid foundation in land-based skills, from brush cutter, pesticide, all the way up to being a fully qualified arborist.
I was actually in quite a low place, and there'd been a lot going on personally for me. I think there's always been that stigma of not being able to fit in after leaving the military. Through a referral, I was introduced to Mark, who is my regional coordinator here for Green Task Force Northwest. And I remember one of the first conversations me and Mark had, and we were talking, and he was like, what are your thoughts on being a female, a female tree surgeon? And I kind of giggled at him and was like, all right, yeah. But, here I am now, 18 months down the line, I'm fully qualified. Yeah, and just in a place where I don't have the same stresses and worries that I used to have. This is the first time in a very long time, probably since I left the army, that I've been able to kind of get up in the morning and look in the mirror and you are a female arborist, and actually have some pride in what I'm doing. What we're doing here for veterans is really important. From my own experience, it's been life-changing. It's not just changed my life, it's probably saved my life as well, because where I was heading and the way I felt, it was never going to end positively.
What we've got behind me here is where these volunteer groups have been doing some select thinning, halo thinning, heavy thinning, and as it may look quite aggressive, the whole idea is to let some light punch into that woodland flora and then help that flora invigorate itself and come back to life. If we move across now, what you'll see here is an area that has previously been done early on last year, and as you can see already, it's starting to develop with the wildflowers growing through, which is increasing the biodiversity, the butterflies, the insects, and the colours as well. What it helps do is it opens up that light, opens up that growth, and as you can see, the hard work has been paid off.
I'm part of the Griffinwood volunteers working alongside community by nature. I've been coming for about 18 months. I'm self-employed, so getting out of the house, doing something in the environment is really helping me, and we are helping to clear the woodland. We are helping rejuvenate the native population, chopping down trees, coppicing trees, replanting, and it's such a fabulous way to spend my time.
The area behind me is Burntwood Moss. Burntwood Moss is one of the 3 bits of this site at Collier's Moss North that is relic peatland that's left post the tipping of colliery spoil and ash from the power station, which were behind me. The area behind Burntwood Moss is the largest part that's left, and Green Task Force this year did the first phase of scrub clearance, allowing us this winter to come in with a project jointly with the Lancashire Wildlife Trust for a major peatland restoration scheme.
Part of the work we were doing here was to support the BTO monitoring. We've been prepping willow lengths in order for them to decompose and what have you, to give great sort of habitat restoration for the willow tits. Amazing to see and be part of it, and it's great to see that there's 3 boxes on here that have got breeding pairs for them to bury their way in, and they're such a quirky little character, such awesome little birds that can chip away like a woodpecker.
One of my early projects when I first started, funded by Green Recovery, was this pond dug by Mersey Forest some years ago, but being taken over by an invasive weed. So with Murphy's corporate and social responsibility group and Community by Nature's Griffinwood volunteers, we cleared it and cleared all the branches back. And as you can see today, it's full. There's at least 5 species of dragonfly, and it's full of tadpoles. A huge success story.
I work predominantly with young people in the school setting to plant woodlands and create new areas. Grass is the killer of trees, so when they're this small anyway, so what we need to do is get rid of the grass. So to do that, nice and carefully, this was part of the Green Recovery funding to create outdoor classrooms at schools across Cheshire and Merseyside, and here in Chester our main goal was to create an outdoor classroom, plant trees as a space where the pupils could use for both social and also lessons. So now that tree has not got competition for its water, less competition for light, and we've got a nice tree in nice grass and a nice worm crawling across it as well.
We have been planting trees to help the community and school feel better and have a nicer, environmentally friendly sort of background and feel to it. It's nice for people to be able to have a place to come and just enjoy nature.
Well, doing work like this is a way for us to benefit our community, so we feel better about ourselves doing that, and it will benefit the environment. As you know, climate change is a huge issue, and we've been learning about like carbon sinks in geography.
The outdoor classroom, we plan to use this with all of our key stage 3, 4 and 5 for geography lessons, focusing on ecosystems and looking at small scale forest ecosystems. So we've already brought some groups out looking at succession, and with the A-level students for fieldwork, we're going to be bringing those out to look at carbon content of trees and doing some fieldwork with those groups.
We've just done climate change in geography. I have as a year 10. It's part of the GCSE course as well. It's been a really interesting opportunity not only to learn about how planting these trees is going to impact the issue of climate change and how it's going to help prevent some areas of it, but also just to learn more in general about how we can prevent the impacts of climate change in our daily lives.
We made a hole first for the tree to go in and then covered it with a guard so that it wouldn't get blown away or eaten by other animals.
I learned how to plant trees properly and how to dig a hole in the shape to get the roots in the right way.
The trees we planted were oak, birch and ash trees. I have learned how to plant trees properly first off, and I've also learned about the different habitats and wildlife that could be over here, and also like what bugs could be around in the soil, especially when we were digging. We had lots of worms and bugs.
We've been working together with Mersey Forest. We've been planting trees and monitoring the area by litter picking and checking on all the wildlife.
We put a little area in for an outdoor learning classroom, and it's an opportunity to learn in a different way and just surrounded by the trees, so you have that, you're constantly reminded of the importance of sustainability and like the environment.
I think we've been really successful given the time scale. It's been a very short time to get everything crammed in. But we look like we're heading to spending all the money and delivering all the targets that we said we would. And I think that's partly been successful because we already had a really good range of partners working with us at the Mersey Forest doing some of this work, and what they needed was some extra resource to bring people in and to buy the materials and the equipment and so on that they needed. And this fund has enabled us to do that in a way that's really accelerated the progress of those projects, and hopefully now put in place the infrastructure to carry a lot of that work on into the future.